How did I get into acting? That was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I'd gone to see a band at a theatre in Deptford called the Albany Empire. It was like a cabaret theatre. And a friend of mine introduced me to a guy called Trix Worrell after the gig, or during the gig. And Trix ran the youth theatre there, but he also went on to co-write for Queen and Country, which was my first film. And he devised and wrote Desmond's, the brilliant comedy about a barbershop in Peckham, which was my first TV job. But I got involved with the Albany and doing theatre. That's how I started in Deptford. I was chatting to him about three-quarters of an hour. He said, "I want you to be in my next play." And I went, "What, really?" And it all started there from a conversation with Trix. I first went on stage there. It was actually opening a new theatre, so it would have been 1982. Yeah, and I think 2 years later, I got an equity card and I did Arturo Ui and Arrivederci Millwall. A couple of years later, Trix had written for Queen and Country, and I ended up with a small part in that, Spit and a Cough. So my first scene in a movie was with the brilliant actor Jeff Francis and another great black actor, Denzel Washington. So yeah, that was my first scene in a movie was with Jeff and Denzel. Craig was on that film. So that's the first time I sort of worked with Craig. Although we sort of knew each other by face, because at the time we both would have been going football. So I sort of knew his face. You can't really miss him, can he? He's huge, you know. He's a unit. So, but I sort of knew him from. Sort of knew his face from football, but that's the first time that we sort of was when we first became friends. A long time ago, as we was reminiscing about it over breakfast last week. There's an urban myth that Denzel Washington's a Millwall supporter, and there's another urban myth that Denzel Washington went to the old den and stood on the Coblo Lane end, and people go, "That's an urban myth. That wasn't true." I went, "No, it's true. I took him and he stood next to me." So the character he was playing for Queen and Country was an ex-paratrooper who was a Millwall supporter, and I think he'd been banging on to Tim Bevan. I've got to go to, you know, he's doing his method bit. I've got to go to Millwall. They keep talking about Millwall, and Tim Bevan's going, "There's no way he's going to Millwall." And I think Trix had said to him, "Well, let him go with Frank. He'll be all right. He'll be safe with Frank." So I took him, and so this is the old den, and we're standing on the Coblo Lane, and I think we were playing Leeds, so it was a bit lively there, and he stood there for about 20 minutes and didn't say anything, and then I said, "You're right." He went, yeah. He said, "Now I know what the Colosseum in Rome would have been like when they were feeding Christians to lions." That was his, and it came out. I think he'd come over to publicise the film, and someone had asked him, "You know, you in soccer, as they call it. I hate that word, but," he said, "Do you support anyone?" He said, "Well, not really," he said, "but I suppose if I did, it would be Millwall." He said, "I've been to Millwall." So he said it. So that's. I think Millwall supporters have won more Oscars than any other sporting team anywhere in the world, because I think Daniel's got 4. I think he's got 4 now. Gary Oldman's got 1, and Denzel's got 3, 4, and Michael Caine's got 2. I think, yeah. So Millwall's won more Oscars than any other team anywhere in the world. It's an interesting movie fact when it comes up at your local quiz night. It was probably Lock, Stock. You know, I think that when that film came out, I was up in Nottingham doing A Room for Romeo Brass, which was the second film I'd done with Shane Meadows. And I noticed that when I was walking into bars, people were staring at me. Now, where I grew up in London, that wasn't a good thing. If you walked into a pub in London, people started staring at you, not good. So it sort of unnerved me a bit at first. Why is everyone looking at me? So I think that was, and I think, I was remember talking to my daughter about it not long ago, because it was the 20th anniversary not long ago, and I think being involved with it at the time, you didn't really take in just how big it was. It was, you know, people say, you know, that film was massive. It was everywhere. and they wanted us everywhere. They wanted people at fashion shows and everything, and it was a big deal at the time, that film. But I think when you're that involved with it, you don't really take it all in. At that point, I was thinking, well, oh great, it's come out and everyone likes it. But I was thinking about the next film I was doing up in Nottingham with Shane. So, and I think it took me. I remember sitting watching it about 4 years after it came out, and it was literally a Saturday night. I'm sitting indoors, bottle of wine, and it came. It was on the telly, on Freeview on the telly, and I just opened the wine and watched it and thought, actually, it ain't a bad film. You needed that distance from it to actually sit and watch it, and really enjoy it. Because the first couple of times I saw it, I was like, I don't know. I just think I was, you're too close to it sometimes. You don't really take in what's going on, But I don't know. Who knows the ingredients? But I think there was a perfect storm around that film. I think it came out at the right time. It was like the height of Britpop. It was the height of the lads magazines. We hadn't seen a decent British gangster film for years, and I think it was a great cast. It was a really great cast. Football Factory, yeah. Again, that's another film, I remember 2 weeks after that film came out, Millwall played in the cup final at Cardiff, and we went down there for the game, and I think there was like a street in Cardiff, and I was with Roland Manukian, and I think it took us an hour to walk 50 yards, and I met Millwall supporters from Serbia, from Russia, from Italy, from all around the world. But yeah, it was a big deal, the Football Factory. But someone said to me, I won't name any names, but they said, do you think this film's going to be a hit? I went, if you do a realistic film about this culture, it'll be massive. And funnily enough, I was at 3 Mills only a couple of weeks ago and bumped into Nick Love, and we was talking about it, and we was talking about the film's longevity. They are two films that have not aged. Some films really age quite badly. But Lock, Stock, I don't think has aged. And the Football Factory certainly isn't. I think if you dropped... And I think what people miss of that film, it's about football hooligans, but it's also a film about 4 different generations of men. Four different... from 4 different age groups, and the sort of the dynamic relationships between, Dudley and John Junkin, and then me and Tony Denham. You got Danny and Neil, and you got Roland and Callum. And I think people miss out on that. It's a real social commentary film. It really looks at our culture, and I think that's overlooked sometimes. Because I think it's one of the most important social commentary films that we've made in this country, because it does explain that culture, and it's not just how it is in London. It's about how it is all over the UK. You find the same thing in Scotland, Wales, all over the place. Yeah, the fights were a bit full on, but then again, we filmed literally 20 yards from the den, and let's say the extras sort of knew what they. Say the extras all knew what they were doing. It didn't faze them. Even the police were actually real fright police. That was actually the real deal. So yeah, it was a bit full on, but it was fun. It was fun to do. I'll cut you first. That's actually, I see someone I know do that in a pub. I see someone actually say that to someone in a pub one day. That's where that came from. And jog on as well, that was a phrase that a friend of mine used all the time. And every time, sadly he's no longer with us, but every time I saw him, he'd say, "Where's the royalties for jog on?" He said, "I even heard it on EastEnders the other night." And I thought, what? So it's sort of become a bit of a cultural thing, jog on. But yeah, as far as I know, the only person who ever used to say it was him. He was a Millwall supporter. He always used to say that to me, jog on. Hold your hand out, yeah. It's funny because when we read the script, I remember sitting with Roland and saying, do you want to rehearse that? And I went, no, let's not rehearse it, because we knew it was it was going to be a stealer. You know, people were going to go away from that film talking about that scene. I said, Roland, let's not think too much about it. You know, it's just run it a couple of times on the day and just do it. And then I think they changed the schedule. So we was meant to do it in the morning, but then Nick said, I'm going to shoot it this afternoon. You got a problem with that? So me and Roland went, that's better. There's less time we got to think about it. You know, let's just do it. And then Neil Maskell, love him, went, well, I don't know, we just really need more time to prepare for this. And we all looked at Neil and went, mate, you got 3 lines in that scene, let's just shoot it. How much time do you want to prepare? So, but Neil, I'm not having a dig at Neil. Well, I am, but he is one of the most hardest working actors I've ever been with. He really goes to town with stuff. Craig persuaded me to do that, and it was a difficult thing to play because he, I don't think, has he ever admitted that he actually did it? I don't think he ever did. So it was a difficult film to do because you had to do it in a way that although he went to prison for it, I think I could be wrong, but as far as I know, he certainly didn't. He certainly never admitted to actually doing it. So it made it quite a weird thing to do. So I think me and Billy Murray on the night, we just sort of just played it quite cold, you know. And I think the only 2 people that know that went on that night were the 2 people who were there. But, you know, I think you're always on slightly dodgy ground when you're basing stuff on real events, particularly when it's an event that's still. There's people still alive that were involved with it, you know, and I think sometimes you're better off taking real events and then sort of supplanting them so it looks like it's fiction. I remember someone said to me they saw the film about the craze with Tom Hardy when he played both parts. People say, that was a load of rubbish, that never happened. I said, no one's interested in that. It's for an American audience. It's got Tom in it. That's what they're interested in, and he's playing two twins. That's what the Americans are interested in. That's what most of the audience in this country are interested in, because all that happened 50 years before most people were born. So they just made a film that, you know, let's set it in the 60s. The 60s were cool, you know. The cars were cool, the suits were cool, the music was cool, you know. And that's what that film's about. It's not. It's actually not even about the craze, other than it's just a twins thing. I think that's what I think that's probably what the appeal was for him to play that part. I didn't want to direct it originally, and then how can I put this? Because they're all friends of mine. Let's say there was a lot of alpha males in that film, and I'm going to say this because they know I love them, but it was a bit like herding egos. So I think I was the best person equipped to overrule them. Maybe that's the best word. But no, it was sort of a climax for me a little bit doing that film, because virtually everyone in it was a mate. We're all friends. Were people that were, and some of them, you know, quite close friends. I'd known for a long time. So it was great to go and do a film with your mates. You know, one of the papers didn't like it because I'd done a film with all my mates. I mean, they wouldn't have said that to Ken Branagh, would they, if he'd done a Shakespeare with all of his mates? They said, Ken's put a terrific cast together. I'm not digging Ken out. He's a brilliant director. But I'm just making that point, you know, that certain people wouldn't get criticised for doing film with their mates. You know? I was terrified, and then I got lucky when Mike Southern, who was the cinematographer, walked in to meet me at Elstree, and we started talking, and that's what I said to him. I said, you know, you're going to have a problem because I'm going to be in front of the camera a lot. He went, no. He said, when I worked with Jodie, we worked out a system and it was fine. Then the penny dropped. He was talking about Jodie Foster. At that point, I relaxed. I thought, okay, well, that's he knows what he's doing. So, and it's sort of, I left all the complicated, brilliant shots to him. You know, and I think just that and I think by that point you've been doing it long enough to know if you're in a scene with another actor whether it's working or not, and you know, to be fair, I had such an experienced cast. You know, they all, you know, it was Craig or Vince or Neil, Tony. They was all pretty much on the money from, you know, the first take. You know, and really lucky to get people like Nick Moran, Dexter Fletcher come in and did cameos. You know, Ashley Walters, Sean Pertwee, Jamie. You know, it was. In fact, me and Craig were talking about it the other day and just saying what an amazing cast it was. And you don't think about it sometimes. I was talking to a mate of mine in a pub and he said he hadn't seen it. I said, well, you know, have a look, see what you think. And he went, I see him a couple of days later, he said, I can't believe they're cast. Every time we went to another scene, I'm like, oh, he's in it, you know. And again, when you're close to something, you don't really appreciate it. But that was another film, I think it took me 4 or 5 years to actually sit and watch it. Yeah, well, it was all right, it wasn't bad. Didn't make too bad a job of it. I think it probably has. Yeah, I think as well. I mean, you know, people. It's my new favourite saying. And I don't do gangster films. I do neo-western noirs. So you know, you'd go, oh, it's so and so film meets so and so film. You know, for me, it was always Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid meets Tombstone. And anyone who knows their movies knows there's a lot of references to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid in that film, homages to it. So, but again, you know, that film is about a way of life coming to an end. When Harry Longbone and Leroy Parker, which were their real names, fled America to go to Bolivia, it was 1901. So the Wild West had sort of ended at that point. And I think the sort of London that my character and Craig's character are lamenting had disappeared at that point as well, with things like the Proceeds of Crime Act and all that sort of stuff. So suddenly their world had changed where they could, you know, if people were working as criminals, they could have everything taken away from them, you know. So that was a sort of link. And also I think for me as well, the language. I think the language in that film was really important to me. I think it's a way of speaking that's dying out, especially if you're a Londoner. I think there's terms and phrases, you know, like my eldest daughter, they call the police the feds. What is all that about? They're gaffers or the old bill. What are the feds? That's the FBI. What is that about? They're the gaffers or they're the old bill, or if you're a scouser, they're the busies. You know, but it's them sort of phrases we're losing. Is that language and the rhyming slang particularly, you know. I don't like to use a lot of rhyming slang in my films because, you know, you do need to translate it for people, but or you go the whole hog, which Guy did in Lock Stock, where he just subtitled that scene. But no, I think it is about a culture coming to an end, and it is a Western. You know, where the bad guy, and I think it's also classic film noir in the sense that the good guys are actually bad guys, but the real bad guys are actually badder than them. Does that make sense? So I think that just about made sense, didn't it? Well, I'm bringing that back in my head. But no, it's you know, it's where the good guys, the bad guys are actually the good guys. You know, because all the characters in that film are sociopaths. Yeah, I've retired. I sort of got to a point where I had sort of I lost both my parents in quite a short space of time. My dad had been ill for a while, but my mum was a bit of a shock, and yeah, I just needed a break from it. My head just wasn't in the right place, and I think it's a job that, you know, and I got offered a job and I actually didn't want to do it, and for the first time in my life I thought, this isn't right, you know, you shouldn't if you ever get on a film or a TV show and you think to yourself, I don't want to be here, then that's the time to pack it in. And yeah, and I just concentrated and did other things for a while. Yeah, and a lot of people would sort of I don't know, just the way certain people behave, and I thought, but, you know, I don't really want to be around people like that, and had a break from it. And then the script from Silent Night turned up and was an offer. And I thought, you know, I'll just dip my toe back in. And I started directing on a couple of courses with young actors. One's called The Real Scene, and the other one's the International School of Screen Acting at 3 Mills. And I think that their enthusiasm and energy and the fact their lack of cynicism sort of recharged my batteries a bit, I think. You know, all right, yeah, that's how I used to think when I was 20. You know, because it can make you a very cynical person, this industry. And I think it's an industry that brings out the very best in people, but also can bring out the very worst in people. You know, it really can. No, it's a bit like riding a bike. I think it's a bit like riding a bike, you know. But I think it's like anything. When you don't do anything for a while, there's a little bit of, you're a bit ring rusty. I suppose now I'm going on films, working with people that were sort of born the year that sort of Lock, Stock came out, as one of them pointed out to me on set of Silent Night. But I suppose he knows what he's doing, so they're expecting it to be good, you know. But It was, you know, I've slowly eased myself, but the most important thing, when I did Silent Night, I was enjoying it again, and I think that sort of I think the gap was good because it recharged my batteries. You know, I did a cut, I mean, I went and did Ripper Street, went out to Ireland and did Ripper Street, which I really enjoyed. Great cast, great writing, and it's the first period piece I'd ever done, believe it or not. So that was interesting, just sort of. My mum said to me, she said, "So what are you doing in it?" I said, "I'm playing a Victorian gangster." so she said, "So what do you look like?" I said, "Like my great-grandfather in that picture on the wall. That's what I look like." So, but no, I really enjoyed that. That was great actors on that. And then I was going to do something else, and it fell through. And then I said, I had sort of people. I lost my parents quite close together, so. I just felt I needed a break, you know. And a couple of things that happened, and I just thought, do you know what? I don't really want to be around this industry anymore. I've had enough of it. But it was the best thing I did because it sort of recharged my batteries, you know. And I was talking to Craig the other week, you know, and he said, you know, he's had breaks as well sometimes, and it does you good. And I think when you do get back on set, I think you appreciate it, you know, because it's better than working for a living, that's for sure. Yeah, there's some good names on that film. There's good names on Nemesis. Yeah, because I've known Billy for years, and I think at the time they said that it was going to be Billy's last film. So he took me to Langham's and got me drunk, so I couldn't say no to him. But no, I wanted to do it because it was his last film, and I didn't work with Bruce. Though Bruce was in for Queen and Country, so that was that link going all the way back there with Bruce, who's, you know, a very underused actor. Bruce, he's one of the great characters in this industry. I love it in bits, Bruce, but yeah, he doesn't work enough really. But it was good. It was good casting. It was good to. I didn't do any scenes with Nick, but it was, again, going back to Lock, Stock with Nick. It was nice to see him involved in it, and worked with Roger Moore's granddaughter, which I didn't know. Amber, I didn't know who she was, and it's quite a strange story because I genuinely didn't know who she was, and they was asking who would you have at a dinner party, and I said, well, Roger Moore, because he's one of the funniest men I've ever met. I was lucky to spend an afternoon with him in a tailor's in London, in Savile Row, and I was crying with laughter. He was just the funniest man I've ever met, and afterwards, someone said to me, "Oh, that Amber was really, really choked about what you said about Roger." And why? That was her granddad. I went, "No." I said, "I'll see you the next day." I said, "I genuinely didn't know that was your grandfather." She went, "No, I could tell that." That was a nice story. For once, I didn't put my foot in it. Yeah, 13 Cars starts on the 27th of Feb. So it's I've sort of been involved with that for a few years now, and it sort of got held up by the lockdowns and stuff like that. So it looks like we're finally getting to shoot it, and yeah, some really good people come on board now. So I've got reuniting with Vass Blackwood from Lock, Stock. David Shaw, David's doing it. I've become good friends with over the last few years. I'm looking forward to working with him. and Tamsin Althwaite, she's doing it as well. So yeah, it's getting an interesting cast together. Yeah. Plus, I've called in favours with every garage and workshop that I know where I live. So that's going to cost me. I can say it's going to cost me at some point. Well, people always say this to me. What's it about? 13 cars. I go, it's about 13 cars actually. But no, it's basically the main character who's a Scouser who's in Liverpool, and he's got to make some quick money because his mum's needs a treatment because she's ill, and he gets given a job of upmarket cars, or cars that money can't buy. He incorporates me, my character in London, who knows how to go about these cars. So it's like we're filming in my mate's showroom. GC Motors at Swan. There's a shout out for Mick Cornish, but he's got 150 original Minis in there, and he's got the last Mini Cooper ever built. So that's a car that money can't buy, because I know he won't sell it, even though he's been offered a lot of money for it. But so it's stuff like that, basically. Yeah, but it's the last Mini ever built. It's a screenplay about Dusty Springfield, and the 3691 was a prison number, which I didn't know anything about. The fact that I think she was sectioned 6 times in her life for mental illness. And I think someone sort of suggested, a friend of mine, Sharon, she suggested that I should direct it, and I just thought it'd be something different. I mean, I've got a film called The Way It Is that I've written and that I'm going to direct, which is another urban Western noir. It's a gangster film, and I'm going to do that in the summer. And I'd like to do that next. I'd like to do something really different. You know, I don't just want to direct crime films. You know, so I don't run into the similar problems that I've run into on other stuff. You know, if the Way It Is works out with the people that are coming in and getting involved in that, if that all goes smoothly, then maybe we can get a working relationship. So ideally, you know, with the right people, I'd like to sort of try and do 2 films a year. You know, either writing, directing, and actually being in some of them, because I still do enjoy acting. You know, I really do. And again, you know, I've spent a lot of time in the summer as well. The course that I go and direct on at the International School of Screen Acting at 3 Mills, it's their 20th anniversary this year. The school's been running 20 years. So one of the founders of it, Mark Normandy, he's written a screenplay, and he said, "Do you want to direct it?" So I went, "Well, yeah." So we're going to shoot that in the summer at 3 Mills in September, and it's going to be sort of slightly unique, that you have to be either at the school or have attended the school to audition for the 5 roles in it. And also, it was written initially for 4 men and 1 woman, but we're going to do an open casting, so it doesn't matter if you're male or female. You can go in and read for any of the roles. So look at me being politically correct. That'll all go out the window again when they watch The Way It Is. But there you go. But that's the plan in the summer, because I was sort of chuffed to be asked to say it's a school, it's a film school. It's been going for 20 years now. So yes, it was nice to be asked to direct it. So we'll see what happens. And that's going to be different. That's a post-apocalyptic political satire. Now they're 4 words I never thought I'd use in the same sentence. It's a look at street life in London and the different generations, and it's also about a communication device that I don't want to talk too much about, because one, it gives the plot away, and also not a lot of people know about it. If you know, you know. Yeah, it's about the different generations and their attitudes to crime. I think, you know, you've got an older generation would say they're involved with organised crime, and they look at a younger generation and go, well, that's disorganised crime. And I think that's a good way to sum it up, I think. And the fact that there's no rules within that world anymore. The youngsters, that any sort of rules there might have been have disappeared. I think that's sort of what it's about as well. It's like a generational thing. And and it's sort of it'd be interesting because I think it's a good story. I think I'm pleased with the script, and I think a lot of it's fake because someone sort of approached me with a rough idea about it, and I thought I don't want to do that. I don't want to write another film. I don't know that I want to direct another film, and then the first lockdown happened, so I had no choice. I had to sit home and write another screenplay. So it done me a favour. Even that done me a favour. So, but once I'd written it and I got my mojo back and thought, no, I actually want to direct this. But it all stemmed from directing on the courses that I was directing. I was really enjoying directing young actors, and that sort of that re-enthused me for directing. I think, after doing it with all my mates on St George's Day, so I'm never directing again. No, I'm joking. But no, Gary wrote it, and Gary's friends with Sharon. Sharon suggested that I should direct it, and I thought, why not? Why shouldn't I? It's there's no reason why you should get pigeonholed into doing certain stuff. I think Craig's forever telling me all the trendy stuff he's doing at the moment. I said, well, you got to do it. You got to do. I said to him, I did that years ago with Shane Meadows, mate. So, but no, you should try different. You should try different things, but also I think you should also be aware of your fan base. And you should still make films for your fan base. That's why can't you do both? I don't get it. I think as working class London actors, we really get pigeonholed more than anybody else. I really do. And and the only time they don't class people that are from a certain area with a certain accent are Londoners. They get people that do really bad London accents. I'm at a stage now I can say that, I don't care. Yeah, but Johnny Depp's different. Johnny Depp's like a superstar. That's different. That makes sense. When we did, not a lot of people know this, but we did the Football Factory. We started filming with another script, and then that got shut down. And then then the script got rewritten by Nick, and the rest is history. But in that original one, Sean Bean was in it. And people said to me, why would you have Sean Bean in it? It's from Sheffield. I said, but Sean Bean's a star. It makes absolute sense to have Sean Bean in it. And he's a great actor. I think I think sometimes you can justify doing that. If you got a chance to put someone like Sean Bean in your movie or Johnny Depp, why wouldn't you? Yeah, Sean Bean's a great actor. I mean, Sean's one of my favourite actors. I'm not just saying that because he's a nice bloke as well. But I first met Sean, we did something called Fool's Gold, which was about the Brinks Mat robbery. And Sean we was filming in Greenwich, and we was doing a scene where we had to break people out of a prison van. Anyway, we stopped for lunch, so he came up, he said, Frank, where's the nearest pub? I said, just down on the right. He said, I fancy a pint of lager. I said, all right, mate. So he said, do you want to come with me? I went, no, I'll swerve it, Sean. I said, it's all right with you, you're the leader. He said, don't look good, us walking in pubs. So I had a spit and a cough in it. Literally, 10 minutes later, he come back, I went, what's the matter? He went, it's a Millwall pub. He said, they're playing Millwall songs and Winston Churchill speeches. He said, I walked in and walked out again. As soon as I opened my mouth, they all looked at me. I said, come on, I'll take you in there. So, yeah, but lovely fella, Sean, nice fella. Yeah, my dad finished his career at Leyton Orient, but I remember my dad playing for Leyton Orient, and as an Orient fan, you will know that the only honour they've ever won, I think I'm right in saying this, is the third division championship, 1969 to 70. So I was there that night. They actually won the league, and standing outside the changing room, and my dad coming out and giving me his medal, because they were all the same. They're about yay big and they're solid gold. I think they still get them. And so, and I've got a fourth division one, which is 61-62, which was Millwall won the old fourth division, and 62 the year I was born. So a good year. But no, I remember him playing for Leyton Orient, and obviously you know, where I grew up in Downham, and sort of just being generally in South East London, you know, the old sort of arguments when you're kids about my dad's bigger than yours, you know, by saying my dad plays for Millwall was sort of like dropping the atom bomb. You know, that was the end of the argument. My dad played for Millwall. Yeah. No, I you know, it's strange because I think that, you know, and I remember in the school holidays going with him to pre-season training when he was at the Orient, and that was a really good Orient side. Yeah, so even as quite a young child, I still would have been at primary school. My life was sort of slightly different to everybody else's because of that. You know, it's always it just seemed different. You know. Yeah, so it was an unusual. It made growing up slightly unusual, I think. You know, but people say, did you know, where did you get your acting ability from? And my dad was a good storyteller, to be fair. I think that's what he could tell a good story. My dad, he had a pub in South London for years, and used to tell really great stories about when he played, you know, and stuff. You think that just wouldn't happen now, you know. My dad was playing for the Orient on Saturday afternoon, and we were driving from South London, so it sort of meant from Downham sort of through the Blackwall Tunnel, and he was late. So he's taking all sorts of liberties, going up down roads the wrong way, down streets the wrong way, doing stuff he shouldn't have done. I think it's hilarious because I'm about 7, 8. Bearing in mind, you know, it's a death trap. I'm in the front seat with no seatbelt on in a Mark II Cortina, and he gets there, and I think he was supposed to drop me off to. I'm sure it would have been my uncle, and he said, I ain't got time for that, you'll have to come with me. So we go down to where the changing room is, and Jimmy Bloomfield's sort of standing, literally looking at me, old man, and looking at his watch. So my dad's, sorry boss, he's going, you wait there, just wait there, I'll sort you out later. So Jimmy Bloomfield's about to disappear in the dressing room, and he turns round, he looks at me, he went, but my dad told me to stay here, Mr. Bloomfield. He went, I'm his manager, so you do as I say. Come in, you do the team talk with me. So I walked in, straight away, I thought, oh, my dad's gone, what are you doing in here? So young Mr. Harper's going to do the team talk with me today. So I sat down next to him and he did the team talk. And I think he said to me, have you got anything to say to the lads before they go out? And I think I said something stupid like, well, win, or something, which they all laughed at. But they were characters in them days, because there's a guy called, the player Terry Mancini was in that side, who was a great character. And he'd gone bald quite early, quite young. He had a great pub over in West London called the Golden Gloves. And Terry played for Ireland, played for the Republic of Ireland. And because they took the mick out of him for being bald. This is on Saturday, on the game. He's run out with a blonde wig on. Long blonde wig, and Jimmy Bloomfield's turned around to Peter Angel train and went, "Who's he? I haven't picked him." And it was Terry Mancini with a blonde wig on. But it's all in like lots of little stories like that, things that just wouldn't happen these days. It's not. I think they probably, although they didn't get the money, I think they probably enjoyed it a bit more than I think. So I don't know. What do I know? I think the other great story he told was they was playing at the Old Den. And Millwall had a corner, and my dad was playing centre half, so he's standing on the halfway line, and Millwall's got a corner at the away end of the ground. And suddenly, Reg Davis, the goalkeeper, has run past my dad towards the goal. And my dad thought, where's he going? So he's looked round, there's two fellas chasing him. So my dad goes, what are you doing? He went, he owes us money. Chasing Reg all round the pitch so the police hauled him off. Only at Millwall.